I thought I knew what betrayal felt like, standing in my quiet suburban kitchen, watching the world outside my window, with a coffee mug trembling in my hands. My name is Brenda, and at 41, I believed my life with Mark was a steady, unshakable routine, until a lingering gaze from across the street pierced through the monotony. That unsettling stare from a young man I've known since he was a boy ignited a storm of confusion and forbidden heat in me, unraveling everything I thought I understood about myself. Now I'm caught in a web of guilt and desire, teetering on the edge of a secret that could shatter my entire world. Will I cross a line I can't come back from? Picture this: a single fleeting moment where the world seems to pause, and all you can hear is the faint hum of your own thoughts. That's where I find myself most mornings, standing in my kitchen with a mug of coffee warming my hands, gazing out at a street so still it could be a painting. My name's Brenda, I'm 41, and this quiet suburban slice of life is my canvas. I live in a modest two-story house, the kind that blends into the background with its beige siding and shuttered windows. My husband, Mark, who's 45, is the steady anchor in my world. He's a sales manager, always out the door before the sun's fully up, chasing quotas and clients. We've been married 15 years, and while the wildfire of our early days has simmered down to a low, predictable glow, there's a comfort in the routine we've carved out. It's not thrilling, but it's ours. I work part-time as a freelance graphic designer, which means I spend a lot of hours in my home office, tweaking layouts and sipping endless cups of tea. The upside? I've got plenty of time to watch the world outside my window. Our neighborhood is the kind of place where every lawn is neatly trimmed, every mailbox stands at the same angle, and the only real noise comes from kids shrieking with laughter after school lets out. It's orderly, almost too perfect, like we're all playing roles in some unspoken script. I know most of my neighbors by sight, if not by heart. I'm friendly enough, always ready with a wave or a quick hello, but I keep my distance. I've never been one for backyard barbecues or gossip over the fence. Maybe it's just my nature, or maybe it's the quiet restlessness that's been creeping into my bones lately. I feel unseen somehow, like I'm blending into the beige of my own house, stuck in a loop of sameness that doesn't spark anything in me anymore. Across the street, there's the Thompson house, a mirror image of mine in structure, but brimming with a different kind of energy. Linda Thompson lives there, a single mom in her late 30s with a smile that could light up a room. She's a nurse, always rushing off in her scrubs, but she's got this warmth about her that makes you feel like you've known her forever. Then there's her son, Ethan, who's 19 now and just started college, though he still lives at home. I've watched him grow up over the years, from a scrawny, shy kid who'd barely look you in the eye to a lanky young man who's still got that awkward edge. He's always been a bit of a mystery, often holed up in his room with the curtains half drawn, tinkering with some gadget or buried in a book. I used to see him as a little boy dragging a toy robot across their driveway, mumbling to himself about circuits and wires. Now I finished the last sip of my coffee, the warmth still lingering in my hands as I set the mug down on the counter. It was time to get to work, so I shuffled into the living room, my laptop tucked under my arm. I settled onto the couch near the large bay window that faces the street, the spot where I often find myself on mornings like this. The light streamed in, golden and soft, casting long shadows across the hardwood floor. Outside, the world was waking up slowly. A faint hum of a lawnmower buzzed in the distance, probably old Mr. Carver tending to his yard a few houses down. I opened my laptop, the screen flickering to life, but my gaze kept drifting to the window every few minutes. It's a habit, I guess, a way to break the monotony of staring at design grids and color palettes. That's when I saw it again. A shape, a silhouette in the upstairs window of the Thompson house across the street. It was Ethan, no doubt about it. The curtain was pulled just enough to obscure half his frame, but I could tell he was there, standing still, his outline sharp against the dim light of his room. I squinted, leaning forward a little, trying to convince myself I was seeing things. But no, he was looking right at my house, right at me. My heart gave a little thump. Not quite fear, but something close, a jittery mix of confusion and irritation. What was he doing? Why was he just watching? I tried to shake it off at first. Maybe he's just a bored college kid, lost in thought, staring into space. Maybe it's nothing. But then I saw him shift, his head tilting slightly, like he was adjusting to get a clearer line of sight. My stomach twisted, that unsettling feeling I couldn't name creeping up my spine. I stood up, abandoning my laptop on the couch, and edged closer to the window, my bare feet cold against the floor. I needed to be sure. And there it was. Our eyes locked for a split second before he ducked out of view, the curtain swaying slightly as if he'd yanked himself back. My breath caught. He knew I'd seen him. He knew I knew. I started pacing the living room, my hands clenching and unclenching at my sides. What the heck was his deal? I'm not some exhibit to be gawked at. I glanced down at myself, suddenly hyper-aware of how I looked, still in my soft, pale blue robe that barely brushed my knees, my hair thrown up in a messy bun, strands escaping every which way. I hadn't even bothered to get dressed for the day yet, figuring I'd have the house to myself for hours. But now, that vulnerability stung, fueling the irritation bubbling inside me. I didn't care how I looked. Not really. What mattered was that this wasn't okay. I couldn't just let it slide, couldn't pretend I hadn't noticed. My home is my space, my sanctuary. I couldn't just sit there stewing in my own frustration. My sanctuary had been invaded by that lingering stare from across the street, and I wasn't about to let it fester. So I made up my mind. I tightened the belt of my pale blue robe around my waist, the fabric soft but thin from years of wear, and slipped on a pair of old flip-flops by the door. My hair was still a mess, damp from the quick shower I'd taken just minutes before, but I didn't care. This wasn't about appearances. It was about setting boundaries. I stepped outside, the morning air cool against my skin, and crossed the street with purpose, my heart thumping harder with every step. The Thompson house loomed ahead, a tidy split level with a bright red door that stood out against the muted tones of the neighborhood. Potted plants lined the porch, their leaves glossy and well cared for, a testament to Linda's nurturing touch. I climbed the concrete steps, the slap of my flip-flops echoing in the quiet morning, each sound amplifying the nervous energy buzzing through me. My mind raced as I rehearsed what I'd say, something direct, firm, but not vicious. Ethan, I saw you watching me, and it's not okay. I needed him to understand that this wasn't a game, that my privacy wasn't up for grabs. I reached the door, my hand trembling just slightly as I raised it to knock, the sound sharp and insistent against the wood. I adjusted my robe again, pulling it tighter, and tapped my foot impatiently on the porch, waiting for a response. Inside, I heard the faint shuffle of footsteps, slow at first, then quicker, as if someone had hesitated before deciding to answer. The door creaked open, a low groan of hinges that seemed to stretch the moment into eternity. And there he was, Ethan, taller than I'd remembered, his frame filling the doorway. His dark hair was a tousled mess, sticking up in odd directions like he'd just rolled out of bed. His eyes, wide and nervous, darted over me before settling somewhere near my shoulder, avoiding direct contact. He wore a faded t-shirt, the logo on it long since worn away, and a pair of jeans that hung loosely on his hips. "Hey, Brenda, what's up?" he mumbled, his voice low and unsteady, like he already knew why I was there. I didn't waste a second. My voice came out sharper than I intended, cutting through the stillness. "Ethan, I saw you, up in your window, staring right at my house, at me, and I'm not okay with it." I pointed a finger at him, my hand steady despite the heat rising in my chest. "Don't try to play it off. I know what I saw." His face flushed a deep crimson, the color spreading from his cheeks to the tips of his ears. He opened his mouth, stammering, I was just looking out at the street, you know. Nothing weird." But his words stumbled over each other, and I could see the lie in the way his gaze flickered away, unable to hold mine. I wasn't buying it, not for a second. I took a step forward, my frustration pushing me closer, needing him to feel the weight of my words. No, Ethan, you weren't just looking at the street. You were looking at me, and it's got to stop. But as I moved, I felt a sudden, sickening tug at my side. The edge of my robe had caught on the door handle, the fabric snagging with a faint ripping sound that seemed to echo in my ears louder than a gunshot. My breath hitched as I realized, too late, what was happening. The tie around my waist, already loosely knotted in my haste, gave way completely. The robe slipped open, sliding off one shoulder with a slow, inevitable drift, exposing me entirely. Underneath, there was nothing, just bare skin, still slightly damp from the shower I'd rushed out of to confront him. The cool air hit me like a slap, and my hands flew up in a frantic scramble to cover myself, my face burning hotter than I thought possible. My hands fumbled, clutching at the thin fabric of my robe, trying to pull it back over my shoulders, but the damage was done. I could feel the weight of Ethan's gaze, even as I avoided looking at him directly. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst right out of my chest, a mix of humiliation and raw anger coursing through me. I wanted to scream, to disappear into thin air, but I was rooted to the spot on that porch, the morning air biting at my exposed skin. Then, in a split second, everything shifted. I stumbled, my flip-flop catching on the uneven edge of the porch step as I instinctively backed away from the doorway. My balance faltered, and I felt myself tipping backward, a gasp escaping my lips as I braced for the inevitable fall. But I didn't hit the ground. Strong hands caught me, firm and steady, gripping my waist through the flimsy material of my robe. Ethan. He'd moved faster than I'd expected, closing the small distance between us to keep me from crashing down. His touch was warm, almost too warm, seeping through the thin fabric and sending an unexpected jolt through me. My breath caught in my throat, sharp and uneven, as I steadied myself against him, my hands instinctively pressing against his chest for support. We were close, too close. My chest was pressed against his, the heat of his body radiating through his faded t-shirt, and I could feel the rapid thud of his heartbeat mirroring my own. I couldn't move, couldn't think straight, as the scent of him filled my senses. Something clean, like fresh soap, with a faint hint of something woodsy, maybe cologne. His nervous eyes searched mine, wide and uncertain, flickering with a mix of panic and something else I couldn't quite place. I wanted to say something, to break the suffocating tension that had wrapped itself around us. "I'm sorry, I should go," I tried to mutter, but my voice came out weak, barely a whisper, swallowed by the thick air between us. Ethan didn't let go right away. His fingers tightened just slightly on my waist, as if he was afraid I'd slip again, and his voice came out low and shaky, almost a murmur. "I didn't mean to stare earlier. I swear I just—" He trailed off, his words faltering, but there was an intensity in his gaze that made my stomach flip in a way I hadn't felt in years. It was like he was seeing me, really seeing me, in a way that made my skin prickle with awareness. The moment stretched on, endless and heavy, every detail burning itself into my mind. The cool morning breeze brushed against my still exposed skin, sending a shiver down my spine. Somewhere in the distance, I heard the faint rumble of a car driving by, a reminder of the world beyond this porch. But it felt so far away, like we were caught in some separate, suspended reality. I couldn't ignore how hyper-aware I was of everything. His hands still on me, the way the fabric of my robe shifted with every shallow breath I took, the slight roughness of his fingertips through the material. My mind was a storm of conflicting thoughts, tearing me in two directions at once. Part of me screamed to push him away, to yank myself free and bolt back across the street to the safety of my house, to pretend this entire morning had never happened. I could lock the door, draw the curtains, and bury myself in work until the memory faded. But there was another part of me, a quieter, more dangerous part, that I didn't want to acknowledge. It stirred deep in my chest, a rush of something electric, something I hadn't felt in so long I'd almost forgotten what it was like. It was thrilling and terrifying all at once, a pull I couldn't quite name, but couldn't ignore either. I hated myself for even thinking it, but the truth clawed its way to the surface of my mind as I stood there, frozen in his grasp. I've felt invisible for so long, like a ghost in my own life. Mark barely looks at me anymore, not the way he used to. I'm still standing there on the Thompsons' porch, caught in Ethan's grip, my heart hammering so loud I'm sure he can hear it. The world feels like it's shrinking down to just this space between us, the air thick with something I can't or won't name. His hands are still on my waist, steadying me, but the warmth of his touch is doing things to my head I'm not prepared for. Then, before I can pull away or find the words to shatter this moment, he leans in closer. His breath brushes against my skin, and I feel the soft press of his lips against my neck, gentle at first, almost hesitant, like he's testing the waters. A shiver races down my spine, sharp and electric, spreading through me like wildfire. My hands, still pressed against his chest, slide up instinctively to grip his shoulders, not to push him away, but to anchor myself. My knees feel like they might give out under me, trembling with a mix of shock and something far more dangerous. Inside, I'm a battlefield. There's a voice screaming at me, loud and insistent, telling me this is wrong on every level. I'm married. Mark's face flashes in my mind, his steady, unassuming smile, the way he kisses me goodbye every morning without really looking at me. And Ethan, he's Linda's son, the kid I've watched grow up across the street, now a young man whose touch is unraveling me in ways I can't comprehend. This shouldn't be happening. It can't be happening. But there's another voice, quieter but so much heavier, drowning out the warnings. It's raw, desperate, clawing at the emptiness I've carried for years. I've been starving for this, for someone to see me, to want me, to make me feel alive again. And right now, in this forbidden heartbeat of time, I'm feeling it all. I close my eyes just for a second, letting myself surrender to the pull. His lips grow more insistent against my neck, tracing a path that sends heat pooling in my core. His hands slide up my back, firm and deliberate, pulling me even closer until there's no space left between us. The thin fabric of my robe is no barrier at all. I can feel every inch of him, the hard lines of his frame pressing into me. The quiet porch around us seems to hold its breath, the door behind us still half open, a sliver of the hallway visible, a reckless invitation to disaster. Anyone could walk by, see us like this, tangled in a moment we can't take back. Linda could come home early. A neighbor could glance out their window. The risk of it, the danger, only sharpens the thrill coursing through me, making my pulse race faster. I can't stop myself. I tilt my head back, giving in completely, and then I'm kissing him back. Hard, hungry, like I've been waiting for this without even knowing it. My fingers tangle in his messy hair, pulling him closer, as if I can pour out every ounce of frustration and longing I've bottled up for years. The taste of him, the heat of his mouth. It's overwhelming, like a dam breaking inside me. We stumble backward, my back brushing against the doorframe, and then we're inside. The door slams shut behind us with a heavy thud that echoes in the stillness of the house, sealing us in this reckless, forbidden space. The next few moments are a blur, a rush of heat and urgency that I can't slow down even if I wanted to. Clothes are shed in a frantic tangle, my robe slipping to the floor, his shirt tugged over his head, discarded somewhere in the haze. There are whispered words, half-formed apologies, and reassurances that mean nothing and everything all at once. "I'm sorry," he breathes against my skin, but neither of us stops. We're caught in this storm of need, moving with a kind of desperate abandon I've never known, not even in the early fiery days with Mark. I don't linger on the details of our closeness, but the weight of it, the way our breaths mingle, the way every touch feels like it's burning a mark into my soul, that's what stays with me as the storm finally calms. The air in the Thompson house hangs heavy now, a silence so thick it feels like it's pressing down on my chest. I'm standing there, my breath still ragged, my skin flushed with the aftermath of what we've just done. Ethan is a few steps away, his back to me as he pulls his shirt back on, his movement slow, almost hesitant. When he turns, I catch his eyes. There's a mix of awe in them, like he can't quite believe what just happened, but also a flicker of uncertainty, as if he's waiting for me to say something, anything, to make sense of this. I can't meet his gaze for long. My eyes drop to the floor, to the crumpled heap of my pale blue robe lying there like a discarded secret. Shame creeps in, hot and suffocating, and I feel exposed in a way that goes beyond just my skin. I bend down quickly, snatching up the robe and wrapping it around myself with trembling hands. I tie the belt so tight it almost hurts, as if cinching it shut could somehow erase the last hour, could pull me back to the moment before I crossed the street with nothing but anger in my heart. My voice comes out low, barely audible as I mutter, "I need to go. I just need to go." I don't wait for him to respond, don't look back to see if he's reaching out or if his expression has shifted. I just turn toward the door, my flip-flops slapping against the hardwood as I fumble with the knob and step outside. The morning air hits me again, cooler now, biting at the thin fabric of my robe, but it does nothing to clear the fog in my head. Crossing the street feels like wading through quicksand. My legs are shaky, unsteady, like they might give out beneath me at any second. Every step echoes with the weight of what I've done, and my mind is a chaotic mess, racing with guilt that claws at my insides. What if someone saw us through a window? What if Linda comes home and senses something's off, some lingering trace of me in her space? And Mark, oh God, Mark, what if he looks at me tonight and just knows? What if the truth is written all over my face in the way I can't hold his gaze or the way my hands tremble when I pass him the salt at dinner? I feel like I'm carrying a neon sign, flashing my betrayal for the whole neighborhood to see, even though the street is as quiet as ever, the lawn still pristine, the mailboxes still perfectly aligned. I make it to my front door, my fingers fumbling with the key as I let myself in. The familiar scent of my home, coffee and faint lavender from the candle I burned last night, hits me, but it doesn't bring the comfort it usually does. It feels like I've walked into someone else's life, like I don't belong here anymore. I shut the door behind me, leaning against it for a moment, my breath coming in short, uneven bursts. Then I drag myself to the kitchen, my sanctuary, the place where I started this day with nothing more than a mundane sip of coffee. There's my mug, still sitting on the counter where I left it hours ago, the contents long since gone cold. I sink into a chair at the table, staring at that mug like it holds some kind of answer, some way to undo everything, but it just sits there, silent, mocking me with its ordinariness while my world feels like it's been turned upside down. I don't know if I regret it. That's the worst part, the part that gnaws at me as I sit there. My hands wrapped around my arms like I'm trying to hold myself together. There's a piece of me that's still buzzing, still alive with the memory of feeling wanted, of being seen in a way I haven't been in years. The heat of Ethan's touch, the way my heart raced with every forbidden second. It woke something in me I thought was long dead. But then there's the shame, heavy and relentless, reminding me of the vows I made to Mark. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.